Okay. Welcome members to our Economy and Development Select Committee. We'll go straight into the agenda and into item 1, which is apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair. Apologies from Councillors Dovey, Wintle, Prosser, White and Haywood.
Okay, so we are quorate today, and thank you to the members that have joined us and to Councillor Smith, who's joined us as well today. On to agenda item 2, and that's declarations of interest.
As and when, Chair.
Okay, noted. And then on to agenda item 3, which is to confirm and sign the minutes of the following meetings, of which there are 3 sets of minutes. Just on this point, it's been raised by some members around some of these minutes dating quite far back, one of which is to November. I think we had a bit of a pre-discussion around this, and if members are happy, we wanted to make a recommendation to Democratic Services just to have a look at this in a little more detail. We also wanted to enforce that none of us believe there's any issue there with individual members or the team. We understand they're under a great deal of pressure. It's more that we just wanted to flag it up to see if there's anything that could be done from a resourcing perspective. Are members happy with that approach, and is there anything you'd like to add? Yeah.
I think it's crucial that we emphasise that we're not criticising the Democratic Service staff. We've got concerns that minutes are coming down from November, and obviously they haven't been signed off, which minutes should be signed off after every meeting.
Yeah, and I'll just echo again what Councillor Evans has just said. So if we could make that recommendation to go forward, but just emphasise that we're not in any way criticising the team. It's just looking to see what we can do to positively support and ensure that this doesn't happen. So, okay, so if we look at firstly at the minutes from the meeting of the 20th of November, please. Are there any issues with those minutes, or are you happy to sign those off as an accurate and true record?
Can I suggest, Madam Chair, that unless any of yourself or Doug got anything to raise, that we accept them en bloc, please.
Yes, okay, happy to do so. All right then, so we accept the minutes as a block then. Okay, thank you. All right then, we'll move then on to agenda item 4, which is public open forum, and I think we can possibly skip to agenda item 5 as there are no members of the public today. And agenda item 5 is scrutiny of CMC Squared, the strategic review and repurposing of the organisation. And we have Kath here, I think, to present to us. Yep, brilliant. Thank you, Kath. Of course.
First of all, thank you for the invite today at the meeting, and certainly to bring this report forward. I know I'll hand over to Kath now in a minute because she's got a presentation that will, I guess, summarise what is quite a weighty document in terms of the business case that has been put together. I guess what I just wanted to just touch on briefly is that I guess in my role of having I guess strategic oversight over CMC Squared as part of my portfolio, I'm present in any event at CMC Squared board meetings, and certainly over the last 6 months or so, the board has been, I guess, reviewing the CMC Squared as a business, its direction and its focus. And Kath is going to bring forward some proposals that the board have now agreed at their last meeting on the 23rd of March, whereby they are looking to repurpose the company around the offer that Kath will now shortly describe. The board have I guess, interrogated matters quite significantly. There is a consequence to that, which is touched on in the report with regards to the existing operation within CMC Squared, which is principally centred around software development as things stand at the moment. And we are looking to transition transition software development out from the company. And it is as part of a wider piece of work whereby we're looking, I guess, as an organisation, as an authority, not talking here about CMC Squared, the company, but the authority itself is stepping back and looking at its approach to software development and system replacement going forward. and a subsequent report will be brought forward and in front of Select Committee before going through to Cabinet in the next month or two to outline future proposals. So I just wanted to just touch on that, just to put things into context before I hand over to Kath. Thank you.
Yes, please do. Sorry,
Just a
Councillor Evans.
question. You say that you've had these board meetings. Are any members present at these board meetings, or are they entitled to come to the board meeting?
I think Kath herself, I think, has probably brought presentations in front of the committee previously, and Peter Fox, leader, acts as the MCC representative on the board. Holds no voting rights, but he acts as the MCC representative. And Councillor Bob Greenland, at this point, sits as chair of the board and as chairman. There is an observer role as well that is filled by Councillor Armand Watts, who of course sits on this committee as well. So that is the member representation. Yes.
So at these meetings, these three people you've just named, they was there at these meetings?
Councillor Watts has sporadically attended board meetings, and I think Kath probably isn't in a position to confirm herself actually, but I don't think Councillor Watts has been at the last 3 meetings. He's been fully informed of progress. Obviously, the conversations, discussions and agreements that have been put forward, all of that information has been shared with him via the board minute circulation, etc. So, yes, okay, thank you.
Jessica.
Okay, we're looking at outsourcing this work now. How many projects has this scheme actually been involved with software design?
Within a project or two, I can probably answer that question. The only reason being is that I'm currently working through some handover arrangements at the moment regarding the existing software development operation. And bear in mind the redirection of the company. I guess it's refocusing 12 months ago. It was always very much founded on digital. Its digital strengths evolved originally in terms of digital tourism, and that evolved. And then 12 months ago, the board decided to bring in a chief technology officer and really focus in on software development. So I just wanted to say that because we're only 12 months beyond that point. It's 12 months. There's probably in the order of about 12 to 14 projects that have either been delivered or are in train and will be delivered now in the next month or two.
Just briefly before we go into the presentation, you mentioned about bringing forward a report before it goes to Cabinet on the software development side, and obviously we'd be really keen as members to see that, but just to make you aware, we've got a very full agenda on the 4th of June with already 3 large agenda items, so it possibly would be looking at July in terms of getting that onto the agenda, if that's okay with you. Okay, so.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I think June is probably going to be a push anyway. I think my point on this, and I'm sure members of the committee can understand. Good afternoon. I'm sure members can understand that the need for the authority to step back and bring together this composite piece in terms of its focus on software development and, more importantly, its approach to software development and system replacement going forward. It's an important piece of work. It can't be rushed. It's got to be done properly. And I'm not saying that that's months and months of time. It's certainly not, but we won't be ready for the June meeting, certainly. I would expect it to be probably July.
Okay, so that's a good early heads up for us to be aware of for that meeting then. Great. Welcome, Councillor Watts. We're just about to go into a presentation on the remodelling and repurposing of CMC Squared. Okay.
Good afternoon all. I'm here today to talk to you about the repurposing of CMC Squared, which is the Local Authorities Community Interest Company. We have before you a report where we look to consider the business case to repurpose and rename CMC Squared and reposition it as a new economic growth company in line with the Council's priority for business growth and job creation. to also approve the spinning out of the Monmouthshire Business and Enterprise team into the Community Interest Company so that we can deliver business and community enterprise development, and to agree the subsequent report regarding the authority's future approach to software and systems development, which we've just been discussing. Okay, so the process to date has been that there's been a full CMC Squared board review and an end of year 3 business plan, and a decision has been taken by the board to repurpose the Community Interest Company to accommodate Monmouthshire Business and Enterprise. We're at a really interesting and exciting time in Monmouthshire Business and Enterprise. We've just approved, or recently approved last year, the Monmouthshire Business Growth and Enterprise Strategy, which we brought before the Select Committee. We've also submitted the Rural Development Programme Strategy, the Local Development Strategy, which is just going through some minor tweaks now, and we expect that to be approved within the next couple of weeks. And we've also been looking at the external components of iCounty, and we have brought before you in the past our paper on broadband in Monmouthshire. So it's a really exciting time for economy and development and enterprise in Monmouthshire, and this is an opportunity to refresh the Community Interest Company to see how we maximise the economic growth potential for Monmouthshire. The reason for the move of software out of the CIC is that a review that's been undertaken has concluded that the current focus on software development can't support a sustainable future for the CIC. Work to date in terms of the projects have been small scale and exploratory, and the opportunity to scale up is limited, one because of the asset locked, whereas any profit is reinvested into Monmouthshire communities, but also because of technical constraints which don't really support commercial endeavours. And just to explain, because the Community Interest Company is owned by the local authority, that means 80% of its activities need to come from the authority. Therefore, 20% can only come from external organisations. So why move Monmouthshire Business and Enterprise into the CIC? As we've discussed before in terms of broadband, there's been a big decision by government to increase broadband and mobile connectivity. This can only boost our competitiveness. Also, we have data in terms of a recent DEFRA report, actually, which identifies trends in flexible working, growth in knowledge-based industries, and we have a recent Tech City report that shows we have twice as many digital businesses operating in Monmouthshire than in Newport, and they're growing, and software development is a big aspect of that. Also, the transfer of innovation is going to lead to stronger growth, job creation, higher output and increased earnings, which we've discussed in committees here. So we need to look to how we raise our local wages, and also the new RDP funding provides much needed revenue support for our rural wards. We're looking at 2.79 million for the next 7 years there. This spin-out would enable the birth of an innovative public-private partnership with a solid governance structure. The board of directors is strong, however they also recognise that the change of direction would mean a need to undertake a skills audit with a view to recruiting additional directors in terms of the new purposing. But also it will generate a competitive advantage for us, particularly in terms of the Cardiff Capital Region backdrop that we've discussed in previous meetings, the Great Western Cities proposal and the opportunities that presented there, but also an opportunity to generate networks and enable local challenge. We need to exploit our economic growth, but in a way that we are sympathetic to our landscape and our surroundings. But it would also enable us to access additional funds, which we can't do as a local authority, particularly as we already have a low award because of the perception that Monmouthshire is affluent. We know, having run rural development programmes for a number of years now, that is not the case in many areas. But as a not-for-profit status, we would be able to access further funds that we can't currently. In terms of financial implications, the authority currently pays £120,000 per annum to deliver this service. There's also going to be a contribution of match funding for the Monmouthshire element of the Rural Development Programme over the next 7 years of £428,000 per year. The proposals are really to redirect these payments to the Community Interest Company to ensure the very smooth transition and to ensure that the service is maintained. And we're in a position to deliver the strategy that's been approved. And the added benefits are that any additional funds that were created as a surplus would be reinvested into Monmouthshire's communities. The recommendations, therefore, today in the report, which contains quite a substantial business case and also an appended Monmouthshire Enterprise Business Plan that's been approved by the authority as part of the improvement plan objectives. So we're looking to spin out the Monmouthshire Business Enterprise into the Community Interest Company and to bring regular reports back to this committee, to rebrand the Community Interest Company as Monmouthshire Business and Enterprise. And that would ensure a very smooth transition with our business communities, but to rebrand it as an economic growth company and a community enterprise delivery vehicle. As you know, as a team, we are very active in the community, right across really from our rural areas into our urban areas, and also to approve the redirection of the payment from the Economic Development Service into the Community Interest Company. Thank you.
Thanks, Kath. Can we just be clear in terms of the recommendations? So what is the resource implication, just for clarity? So I know you've got the diagram under page 5 of the business report, but what is the additional resource implication from the authority if we were to adopt this model
There's
today?
no additional resource implication. It's purely a redirection of funds into a community interest company which is owned by the authority. In terms of accommodation provision, for example, at the moment that is provided by the authority. As the community interest company, we would pay for rental and also for the services that will be provided in terms of payroll, HR, etc.
So apologies for my ignorance. So the total expenditure figure of the current scenario, which is 277,000 to 350, that additional total expenditure that's projected is going to be covered by...
Is covered as by the authority's budgets at the moment, so there's no additional requirements needed.
But equally, sorry, Chair, then, sorry if I can add to that question. Equally, there's no additional savings. You're not streamlining anything. There's no cost benefit to the authority or the taxpayer by doing this, is there?
Well, there is a cost benefit in that as we would be operating as a community interest company and therefore not-for-profit status, we will be able to access funds we can't do at the moment. And also, given the commercial acumen of the Board of Directors, that would enable us to look at other opportunities as well.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that the company will have new wings, so it will take a different direction, a different sort of flight. But you're saying that as it stands at the moment, so for example, under the umbrella of CMC Square, it couldn't access those additional funds. That's what you're saying then, really? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah? And the additional funds are what? What additional funds will we be able to get? Sorry to sneak my question in there. But
There are opportunities that aren't open to us at the moment, as we know, in terms of there are big lottery opportunities, Horizon 2020, there's a third sector loan that we can apply for, and various other opportunities that we currently can't do at the moment because we are a local authority-based team.
in real terms, so what do they mean? What's the hard cash value of those? If potentially for applying for that, how do you see financially that there will be some additional benefit from doing this?
I see the opportunities really through looking at the skills that we have in the team at the moment, which are exceptional. Many have run their own businesses. We also have a trained accountant within the team. We're looking to capitalise on that and take on additional consultancy where we can. We've already undertaken some consultancy for the Marches, a local enterprise partnership, for example. And it would really just give us an opportunity to act in a more commercial manner.
Did you want to follow up on those points specifically?
I've got probably...
I think if we I'm sure we can continue to go around and ask further questions. Do you want to? Yeah, I've got some more questions on the financial side as well. So maybe if we focus in on that at the moment, then Councillor Watson, do you want to follow up then with another question?
Tally. So it's this kind of community enterprise. I mean, I think that's a great idea, you know, to have a community enterprise. We used to have a community enterprise council, didn't we? And used to roll out lots of different programs for small businesses historically. And I think that's a really, really good thing. But I'm not entirely sure what kind of hold we have on, I mean, I've been concerned as the opposition, if you're like member of CMC Squared, about sometimes where it becomes accountable and what access members have to information, and effectively what direction they're going in. So I appreciate you talking about new directors. You're talking about adding what additional, so you've got your existing directors of CMC Squared. Yeah. What are you looking to add to that? And how would that process, was that one of your questions, Chair? Sorry.
Well, I think it was, you mentioned the Reading model, and I looked at the board which Reading have, for example, and I'd be keen to replicate something like that. So how does governance work, and also the role of scrutiny as part of that governance? The importance of us as a committee is going to be critical to take this forward, because I think we've all got questions over the success of CMC Squared in the past 3 years of it running, and I think we need to have a bigger role as members to scrutinise the governance.
Yeah,
and
I guess and to add to that, really, and you put it more eloquently than I could, but you know, there are kind of issues about the success of it, and you know, how is this going to change the culture of it if we've got the existing directors and maybe the existing kind of culture that exists within that, and just going back to the accountability aspect of it, how will that improve?
Kath may want to come in herself, because I know she's been actively involved and originally, I guess, in terms of bringing some of the non-exec directors forward. But certainly from my perspective, and having been involved in a number of the workshops and the board meetings over the last 6 months, I guess the board asked themselves some very hard questions, really, and I think you can actually demonstrate successes that the company has had in the first 3 years of operation. However, we're at a point where clearly the board feel that they're at the moment, where it needed that repurposing, and they are very ambitious non-exec directors. They are keen to make a significant contribution to the success of the company, and it got to a point, I guess, where there was actually a question. I think Kath herself brought a paper to the board meeting a few months back, where I guess there were 3 options presented. One was actually to close the company. One was to mothball it for a period, and the third option was to repurpose it. The non-exec directors were very, very clear that they did not wish to follow the first 2 options. It was the third option they wanted to follow. And it wasn't a case, really, that Kath presented what she's presented today to them. They took up that discussion themselves in the first instance. They looked back at their social aims and objectives of the company, which are quite wide-ranging, and they added their contributions into that conversation, and they were quite clear that, you know, I guess business and enterprise was the area that they wanted to focus in on, because that's where they saw the most opportunity. I think in terms of the scope and comments that yourself, Councillor Watson, and certainly the Chair has made, I think the Reading model is certainly a good example to use and replicate in terms of good governance structures. But we do need to make sure that we've got the right cross-representation of non-exec directors at the board, so that we've got the right breadth and mix of expertise contributing to take the company forward. But coming back to the governance point, I think the scrutiny bit actually is probably reinforced even more so now with what is being brought forward. And the reason I say that is because it's fun. Enterprise, job creation and business growth is one of the authorities for strategic priorities. It is deeply rooted within Economy and Development Select. It's a part of its core purpose to scrutinise that aspect of the business. And I would expect probably a more frequent reporting up and through this committee as a result.
My final point, is this absolutely necessary, though, to do it through a standalone company? Because when you look across the country and you look at examples of best practice in other local authorities, I think Wigan comes to mind probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I know Murray had a file on it somewhere. And there was some very specific but kind of fairly straightforward aspects of what they were doing that I think to elected members would have seemed like common sense, about nurturing small businesses, having someone there to I guess babysit some of those kind of businesses for the first 2 years or 18 months, etc. What makes I know you're saying about the funding, but is it would it be any better, do you think, by doing it as a kind of standalone, separate entity? What additional freedoms besides the money will it have than it would if it was completely controlled by the local authority? I say completely controlled because I do think that members are capable, as we've seen throughout the country, this is my point, of doing exactly the same thing, but under the if you like, under the control of a local authority. That's what we're here for.
I think beyond, I think not to underemphasise actually the funding, and I know that's something you've obviously parked aside because we've just touched on it, but the access to additional funding is a significant part of this whole conversation and the repurposing. Very much when you look at the backdrop of what we're facing going forward, and there's much, I'm not the only one, other officers will come forward and, they are challenging themselves at the moment with obviously putting their services on a sustainable footing. And we are absolutely trying to do that. And again, through the proposal to put this through and situate it within the community interest company. However, the other advantages it will give us is that, I've got to be quite careful in terms of the way I phrase this, but at times there is a stigma attached to actually delivering economic development from an authority. And actually at times what you want is to get closer to business communities. You want to be really in touch with them and in that space. And that's not a critique of local authorities. That's actually a perception that actually you find sometimes when you go out into business communities. So certainly from my perspective that the community interest company model is one that lends itself very well to what we're trying to achieve.
I mean, I'm sorry, I really am mindful. Members will tell me to shut up, please, if I am. It's just that I just think that it depends on what our ambitions are with this company, and I think you may be right, particularly if you're dealing with businesses that have some aspiration to become a AIM company or FTSE 250 company or something like that, and then we all rock up and say, look, would you like some help? We know what we're doing because we run a local authority. I mean, I would say that it is quite a good business model, local authority, because it has some success in what it does, and it does lots of different things. So I think if you were looking at it from a business perspective, you might want to invest in it, maybe. But I guess wider than that, though, it depends on what you aim to do. Are you looking for startups? Are you looking to assist startups? And if so, I'm struggling to see why there isn't the expertise, maybe even in this room, of people that could assist or have the knowledge or seek out the knowledge to assist little startups.
I think if I just, and again, Kath may want to come in off the back of this because I know it's close to her heart, but I mean, we brought the strategy forward last year in terms of the business growth and enterprise strategy. That is rooted, on three pillars. It's underpinned by, with three core pillars. One is around supporting business growth. And that's across the piece, from your very smallest micro business right up to the larger companies, in and across the authority. The second pillar is around really developing our inward investment offer and actually attracting new business into the county. And the third one is actually around growing entrepreneurs, which I guess has young enterprise very much at the heart of it. Some of those things, admittedly, and I accept, we could continue to deliver, in the good way that we are now, whether it be through the authority or through the community interest company model. However, when you take the whole thing in its round, and actually when you bring the funding, the opportunities that additional funding brings, it actually really allows us to actually deliver more better on the strategy.
I hear what you're saying, and I totally get what you're saying. But this thing about funding, and it's about ambition then, and matching that ambition with the funding. How significant is that if only going to improve the opportunities for you to roll this out? I mean, in real terms now, we're talking about money. How much better off will you be?
Sorry, the mic. I'll give you an example. The Technology Strategy Board, as an example, which is sat on about £6 to £8 billion worth of funding. They've repurposed themselves as Innovate UK, and that in itself, Kath's mentioned smart communities and smart city concepts earlier in her presentation. But that funding is very much untapped. It's widely known that public sector and other vehicles has not really lent into that pool of funding with any level of significance. That offers a great opportunity for us. The other areas that Kath's touched on as well, we're talking some pretty sizable funds that are often and not available to us through a local authority, but will be through a vehicle such as the Community Interest Company. My ambition and my aspiration is to deliver fully on the strategy. And if actually repurposing this and delivering it through the Community Interest Company allows me to do that, it allows us to bring in additional funding, create really put some backbone to some of the programs and plans that we've got to deliver, then that can only be a good thing.
Oh, it all sounds great.
Okay, well, it's all of those things. It is. And I'm not just saying that just for the sake of an easy answer to the question, but it is all of those things. I don't know, Kath, I don't know whether you want to just maybe just touch on some specifics, just to provide some greater level of reassurance, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely all of those things. The only problem, right. With the addition of the fact that we really want to go forward now with our growing entrepreneurs strategy. So yes, it's supporting our existing businesses. Yes, it's looking at inward investment, but very importantly for us, it's how we grow our own entrepreneurs, how we look at the Young Enterprise Awards, how we work from primary school through to secondary school, how we then encourage our students then to go forward and set their own businesses up. And we already had an example with Councillor Prosser was at an event a couple of weeks ago in Newport with the university, look at the Young Enterprise Awards, and school, Haberdasher School had applied, Monmouth School had applied. So there is interest out there, and for us it's growing that. And going back to your points in terms of board and governance and scrutiny, we recognise that the board themselves recognise there's a need to look at the skills we have at the moment, to look at see how we can grow on those. We will focus on the 3 strands, which are, as we've just talked about, support, inward investment, and also young entrepreneurs. And we will target people in those areas to encourage them to join the board, because the difference with the board is the fact that they come with commercial acumen. And the 3 directors we had as a result of the last recruitment campaign have made a significant difference to the company. They also recognise the need for additional governance, and as part of the business case, we've looked at bringing on a monthly management team, which allow us to make decisions a lot quicker, which will then go forward to the board on a quarterly basis, but will allow us to move with speed. Whereas in the past, the CIC has run on a quarterly basis. There will still be reports put forward to select committees, as there always have been. I don't expect that to change, because as a local authority-owned company, we will still need to explain where we are in the process and what our intentions are. I think for me, though, it's the opportunity. If you're working with businesses and you're in a business yourself, you have more respect because you are going through exactly the same issues as them. And when we were set up as a venture, we were out in the Bryn, in the middle of nowhere, like all the other rural businesses. We had the same issues. To get a pint of milk, we had to drive to Abergavenny. So straight away, we were working on the same level as them. And I think by putting Monmouthshire Business and Enterprise into a community interest company that is operating as a business that needs to earn enough money to cover its overheads, you have a different level of respect. And we are that more in tune with what is going on. And we were also, as part of the recruitment campaign, Councillor Greenland and I were overwhelmed by the opportunities, the actual calibre of people that had applied. So people are interested. So, for me, I just think it's a very positive thing to do. But clearly, it's for the committee to decide.
Can you put your mic on, Councillor Watts, please?
I appreciate that you, unless you've got governance in place and, you know, you're still to, forgive the pun, but give birth to this this baby, really, that you won't have a full idea about where you want to go, but you must have some kind of idea about, you know, the kind of people you want to recruit. You might even have a few people in sight. You must have an idea about what businesses you're looking to nurture, what businesses you're looking to create, startups. And I guess really all I'm hoping, and I'm going to stop here, is to say that that's the only aspect of this I'm disappointed about. It's not the idea. It's just really the detail, really. And the devil's always in the detail, as I say in every meeting.
The way to respond to that, I think, is that we only took the strategy through November last year. So I'd very much describe it as us being in mobilisation stage as things stand at the moment. We're only in April now. Kath, if she so wishes, can talk about some of the successes that have been achieved even in that short period of time. There is a comprehensive programme plan that sits behind the strategy that was brought forward, and I fully expect that programme plan will carry itself across and into the community interest company. In fact, the authority will need to make it very clear to the community interest company, given the fact that it is redirecting that payment to the community interest company. It needs to be very, very clear in terms of what its expectations are in terms of output and outcome. So, Kath, I don't know whether you want to talk about some of the successes, some of those good news stories over recent months, and certainly in terms of what that immediate focus is for you now over the next 3 to 6 months.
Okay. The immediate focus for us at the moment is, one, delivering support on the ground for our businesses so they can move forward at speed. And we are in daily discussions with businesses, as you would expect us to be. Another clear focus for us is our digital activities. When we picked up the Super Connected Cities programme, which was running through Newport, we approached them to ask if we could actually have Monmouthshire included. Initially, we just had the urban areas included. We worked to submit an additional proposal with Newport to actually extend that now into the whole of Monmouthshire. We are having expressions of interest from businesses on a very daily basis, people who are wanting to connect. We also actually now have free public Wi-Fi on our buses, including the grassroots bus. So all of this would not have happened unless the strategy had been in place, identifying that was what we needed to do. We've looked at various different models in terms of potential of looking at a business hub model in some of our Monmouthshire County Council buildings that we are looking at whether they're being vacated at the moment, and that is very much open to us. Personally, I'd like to see that we were offering space to our young entrepreneurs. So we're not only saying go out there and start a business, we are actually going to put them in an environment where they can actually network, but in a public sector environment where they've got some support and we can have our team on site there helping them. As far as the Rural Development Programme is concerned, we had, as we all know, run a successful Rural Development Programme in Monmouthshire. We have now taken on the role for Newport, who approached us directly and said, you've got a track record, we haven't, will you do it for us? We are already now networking with Newport councillors who are saying, well, in the past there's been so little funding for rural areas, we can't believe we've got some, and we're actually going to, we're going to be heard. And I think that is where the real potential is for the new CIC, to actually be the voice for rural communities, but actually show we can do it just as well as the urban areas. And the recent Tech City reports that show the growth of digital companies in the county, for me, just nails that. However...
Why is that though specifically? As I mentioned, one of the officers mentioned this to me the other day. Why specifically is that?
Why is it specifically that they actually...
Why have they grown so you were impressed by those figures and you've seen the growth of those type of businesses? What's that down to?
Because it's an aspiration for us with the iCounty strategy to become a digital county. We clearly are offering the services that are required. Now that we're actually in the Superfast Cymru rollout and it's actually starting to happen, we went from 27 businesses with access to super high broadband in March 2014. We now have over 25,000. So because those connections are there, because of the landscape that we have, is therefore having a result in terms of we're providing that environment where businesses actually want to come and settle here. Digital is the main growth. We all know that. If you go to Young Enterprise Awards, it's all about digital. They're either designing apps for education or, you know, so we know that is the way to go. However, what we also don't want to do is to forget our indigenous businesses. We are very aware of the high creative sector that we have in Monmouthshire in terms of our arts and crafts, our food businesses, our food offer. So our job is to work with other areas within the authority, for example, our tourism section, our leisure section, to ensure that we're providing the right environments for our businesses to grow and create opportunities for our young people. Okay, Apprentice, which came to you at the last committee, is a jointly owned not-for-profit company that the CIC owns with Mellon Homes. We have over 70 apprentices on the ground at the moment. We've had over 109 through. Numbers for Monmouthshire are about 20. Although that may seem low, it is a South East Wales region initiative. However, with the very recent news that the 21st Century Schools programme is hopefully due to start, part of that contract has it written into it to offer opportunities for young people to start apprentices, and that will be done through the apprentice scheme. So straight away we've got options for young people to start in the construction industry, which is great. We are very aware that the web presence is non-existent for Monmouthshire Business and Enterprise at the moment, and that has been addressed this week when we go out to tender. We will also build into that and on a Monmouthshire Online or on Monmouthshire section of the website, which will explain where Superfast Cymru is going, what the opportunities are for digital inclusion, which is very important to us, but also what the opportunities are for digital exploitation, so looking at e-commerce activities. We've just got a new programme starting in Abergavenny at the moment, where we're actually doing one-to-one mentoring for businesses to actually get them online and start promoting themselves. And we're doing that in conjunction with Love Abergavenny, putting a tender in for that. But also raising awareness of what the opportunities are in Abergavenny. So we're very aware of what's going on in Monmouthshire and where the opportunities are. It's just the way that we approach it is going to be slightly different should this go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Could we just check the other members and then come back to you, Councillor Watts? Is that okay, if you've got anything further? Councillor Edwards and then Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want to go back to basics to start with. The CMC Squared, what is its legal entity?
It's an asset locked community interest company.
An asset locked?
Yeah, so any profits that are made are reinvested back into the community, but it's locked in an asset. It can't be used for anything else.
Right. And what if you're forming this CIC company now, is it going to be called MBE?
The CIC is actually registered as Community MC2 and it trades the CMC Squared. The proposal is purely for it to trade as MB or Monmouthshire Business and Enterprise.
Right, okay. So what control do we have over the investment that we're putting into this? You know, we were talking about it somewhere in these notes here. There's 120,000, which is our sort of annual charge. There's 400 and something odd thousand coming from somewhere else. And then the 2.95 million or whatever it is that's coming from the RDP. That normally would come to Monmouthshire, I presume. So we're taking a risk. Are we investing into this new company?
I don't think there's a risk per se. Well, in fact, I don't think there is a risk. I think it is very much an opportunity as the discussion's taken us into that space, I guess. But you know, Kath sort of reiterated you know what the community interest company is with the asset lock, etc. Can you just clarify your question again? Sorry. Just so I make sure I answer.
Yeah, what control will you have over? What control
as
will we have over?
Yeah, so I think, as I said to when responding to Councillor Watts a couple of minutes ago, you know, it's very important for the authority to have very clear arrangements in place, because if we're looking to redirect the funding instead into, you know, our own internal economic development function, and we're going to take that to CMC Squared, there's going to have to be very clear agreements in place, annual agreements, which stipulate what outputs and outcomes are expected from the authority. You know, there will be minimum criteria set within all of that, will be consistent, which will be consistent with what we would expect if it was delivered internally. However, my aspiration and my ambition is that the company would actually outperform that significantly.
I am impressed because the enthusiasm that comes over from Kath and from you, Peter. So the two other points. Is there any connection now between this new company and the bid operation which is going on in Abergavenny? Is there any support coming from you on that particular bid to encourage, the bid itself, if it goes through, is a very exciting prospect for Abergavenny and the traders there. And I just hope that, I think it's so important that the bid is successful so that we get this impetus. And the other question is, we've just talked about Apprentice and Melian in particular. This is very much a construction side. Now, Monmouthshire, if you like, is a food county. When we're talking about catering apprenticeships and things like that, it was disappointing actually that a young lady that I know of in Abergavenny, she's tried all sorts of places to get a job. And when they start saying, well, you can get, I think it's something like £1,500 towards your apprentice in the catering industry, and yet it doesn't appear that anybody really wants to take it up in the catering industry in the town.
Okay, if I pick up the bid element, and I know Peter's keen to pick up the food element, but in terms of the Business Improvement District, of course, we will still maintain that support. It's very important to us. We were the ones who drew down the funding initially as a result of an approach through Tony Connexty through the Civic Society, actually, and the Abergavenny Business Club members. So it's very important to us that it succeeds, particularly because if it does succeed, that opens up opportunities for Monmouth, Chepstow, as everybody else, So Caldecott is really important for us. It's a very exciting initiative, I agree. I couldn't call the bid at the moment what the results of the ballots are going to be, but we're doing our utmost, and the report that we presented to Select, Sian presented to Select when she was here, is actually going to Cabinet on the 6th of May. So we would hope that we would get that support going forward. Yeah. In terms of Apprentice, we do have plans to expand. Construction isn't the only area that we are looking at. We have looked at digital apprenticeships. We've also looked at hospitality, and we've also looked at care. The difference with construction is the fact that it's supported through a levy which comes through the Construction Industry Training Board. So construction companies pay to train their future construction employees, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, that doesn't go across into other sectors, but we are looking at other alternatives. So I'll let you pick up on that.
So probably got to be a little bit careful in terms of how far I can sort of share information at the moment, but I guess if I just follow on from Kath's point, really, in terms of construction apprentices, and I guess the funding arrangements that allow that to be sustained. I think what we've got to do for those other sectors, and let's just take food as an example there, because I think that's a real key one for Monmouthshire for obvious reasons, is to look at how we can actually connect some of the dots on this whole thing. So in terms of people who are actually leaving the schooling system, who've got an aspiration to get into that sort of that sort of field and that level, that sort of expertise. At the other end of the spectrum, which is around looking at what we can do to support food business within the county and actually to grow it. And skills, no matter what sector you're in, you've got specific needs in terms of the skills and expertise that you need, and you want that to be high quality for obvious reasons. Now, if we can actually connect some of these dots through, possibly through discussions with the likes of, for example, Coleg Gwent, etc., it's a can we question. Can we actually put together a sustainable model? Scheme does, but it actually allows businesses to pay, decent wage to people who are possibly classified as an apprentice in food businesses. They get all the requisite skills, the money that they should probably be rewarded for that, and if we can bring that whole thing together, as I said, bring that together with the likes of Coleg Gwent and make sure that they get that, that solid background and expertise, well, yeah, that's a good outcome, and I think that's the sort of conversation we're wanting to get into now. And food is there. Kath's obviously mentioned care and the care sector, and let's understand the demographic that we've got across the county. Finally, going back to Kath's points around the Tax City report, and obviously the growth in that sector, and obviously the need for that skill and expertise within the locality. So, those are our areas of focus. We just need to get to a point where we can bring some of those stakeholders together to bring, a sustainable model to the table.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to go right back now to the start. You mentioned board members, and you have 3 at the moment, is that correct?
Yeah, we have 3 non-exec directors. We have 1 board member, active board member, and we have a board position that is currently vacant.
You said that you would like, if you amalgamate or went over, you would like to increase the membership. As we can see, the 3 are doing it at the moment. They're doing a good job. They're tested. So why do you want to go and expand if we're already working on a safe basis at the moment?
It's a good question. It's a good question. I think the board members, the non-exec directors themselves, actually posed this question. It wasn't an observation that anybody else has had. It's them themselves, because they recognise that you know, they come with specific background expertise. We've got a certain focus with regards to IT with 2 of the 3 non-exec directors, and it goes back to Armand's point, Councillor Watts' point earlier. There's a whole array of different sectors within the county, we need to have that proper balance of expertise and input into the board, so that we don't indirectly focus on certain parts of the business of the business community to the disadvantage of others.
Going back to what Councillor Watt said about the professional of some of the members we got, if not all the members, right? Perhaps, and I asked the question, unfortunately, before Councillor Watts came in, how many members was represented with this board, and you told me there was 3. And why perhaps we should be thinking if we could widen that to have more members involved with the activity of this board.
It's funny how all these conversations come together into one. No, I know. I think it's an observation. I think we've got to be a bit careful, I guess, in terms of the size of the board, and obviously having the right balance there. And I guess conclusions will be drawn, and it's not for me to take those decisions. It's for the board themselves. I think beyond that, because it's a discussion that myself and Kath have been having earlier this week, I think there is a question about bringing together a bit of a wider network of some of those like-minded individuals that work in and around this space. And actually, because there's a lot of highly networked individuals, members and people out there within the county, and we've got to make better endeavours, I think, to connect into those individuals, because the collective insight that they can bring to the table to help us with the challenges that we're trying to meet, that can only be a good thing. So I think that's something that really sits in around the board and the membership that's put together.
Touch on payment. You was on about monies which with the one, and if you amalgamate, it would be transferred. And you were saying that you would have to put strict measures in to make sure that money was. Is there any interest on this money as well?
I'm naturally anticipating that there will be a payment schedule that's made across to the company to provide it, obviously, with the flow of funds. I'll take advice from our beloved accountants, I guess, on that one, as to whether they see it as being sufficiently material to warrant it.
But as we are at the moment, every penny counts. Can I carry on, Madam Chair? Right. You mentioned earlier on about making all these connections with, is there any chance, and this is me being sarcastic now, is there any chance that perhaps you could get 43 members connected to the system without having any problems within the programme?
Maybe we just hang that one, should we?
Yeah, all right then. Coming back to Kath, you mentioned Abergavenny and you did touch a little bit on Caldicot. How much involvement is the company having with trying to promote Caldicot in the old place and regeneration?
We've been working with Caldicot for a while now and have actually been helping them in terms of the installation of the free Wi-Fi in the town centre and making the connections with the local company there. But also I've been asked to provide some advice in terms of how community interest companies work, because obviously they're operating one as well. So we're just in the process of setting that up. But we are involved, we attend the meetings and we provide support as and when and where required. So yeah, we're working hard on there.
You mentioned, you obviously talked about apprenticeships, and when we sat in this room a couple of months ago, you mentioned, I can't remember the exact number, but out of that number, total number, there was only one apprenticeship from Monmouthshire, and I'm pleased to see, you're mentioning there's 20.
The figures that we have change regularly because it does depend on where the apprentices are in this system. So some have already gone on to additional jobs, and I've updated the report that will now go for. You've had the update, but also that'll go forward to Cabinet explaining where they've all gone. But we can track who they're working for, etc., because it's part of our role as a company to make sure that they are being successful going forward. So although it might appear small at the time, it's because they've progressed on, or in some cases they decide it's not for them, and that's okay too. But we are providing those opportunities, and I think as a result, certainly as of the 21st Century Schools build, there will be a lot of momentum there now.
I've got a couple of questions, if that's okay, members. Just in terms of the income generation, I mean, the last year of CMC Squared then was 13.2. That was what was raised as a 30.2 thousand. It says that's current scenario. 13.2, is that right? Although I appreciate there's an annual budget report that takes you up to March 2015. I'm just looking at the options appraisal on page 15 and 16 of the annex. But my question was more around, was that generated from software development, which you're planning on taking out of this? And your anticipation is that you're going to bring in £17.7 thousand in the first year. Where is that going to be drawn from? What's your current thinking?
Yeah, I apologise for any confusion. The actual current scenario relates to the Monmouthshire Business and Enterprise team as it stands, and not to CMC Squared. In terms of the opportunities we've been looking at as a team, we've been looking at various things really. Obviously we want to deliver our core service, which is detailed within the business plan, not only within the business case but also the business plan that relates into the single improvement plan. So all the outputs, etc., that we'll be judged on is all included in there, and we would hope to overachieve on those. But also we've been looking at ways and how we can actually charge for the service that we deliver. So in terms of helping businesses secure finance or doing business plans and cash flows, marketing opportunities. And also we're looking at a soft landing inward investment support service. When we talked about other CICs, there's one operating in Cornwall called the Cornwall Development Company, and they're basically a spin out of the local authority, but they also run all the European funding programs, deal with the digital access issues and various other things. And part of what they do is a soft landing investment. So if somebody's looking to fly into Cornwall, set up a company, they'll do all their travel arrangements, set up hotels, etc. So we see that as an opportunity for us, particularly given the excitement that's going on in Bristol at the moment. But also really for us, it's going to be the annual business summit that we'd like to do we're looking at a date of the 25th of September. We're looking at proposals at the moment in terms of what that's going to look like. We're looking at 1 or 2 days with a gala dinner at the moment, but also really in how we bring the young enterprise element, the digital element, the current business support that we provide, and actually start selling our services hard to those businesses, but also bringing those networks together. And the one thing that there are in Monmouthshire, quite a lot of business clubs, etc., but we want to do is bring people together on an annual basis. We know the Back to Business Week worked. It hasn't been followed up since for various different reasons, but that's something that we'd like to do on an annual basis now. The first one will be in September.
On that basis then, and with all the positive stuff, it almost seems quite low, that figure, and we potentially could be more ambitious if this is what we're saying we can achieve and the time's right. It's only 4,000 more than what we're currently generating at the moment, so maybe just something to consider.
Yeah, to be honest, we have erred on the side of caution. Yeah.
And just a couple of other brief questions. In terms of the risk, you talk about specialised third-party legal advice that needed to be procured. Is that being factored into any figures anywhere, or is that as and when situation?
It's an as and when situation, really, but we will make provision for it, yes.
And you talk about, obviously, the importance of this, how it sits alongside Great Western Cities and Cardiff Capital Region. What sort of feedback have you had from your peers, if you like, around why this model might work as being the sort of mechanism for rural delivery and business enterprise? Have others actually recommended this as being a model that's taken forward, or suggested they'd be keen to work with a model like this?
There are numerous models like this within the rural development sector, specifically across Wales. One is Planed in Pembrokeshire, another one is Mentormorn on Anglesey, and they are initially set up as leader groups or rural development programme funded groups back sort of 10, 15 years ago. They have been very successful, particularly the one on Anglesey. They draw in additional funds. They're also working on a lagoon tidal programme at the moment with the Crown. So there are a lot of successful models, and I think in terms of where we're uniquely positioned in Monmouthshire and our access to Cardiff and Newport, this would be a real opportunity, because the closest one to us at the moment is Planed in Pembrokeshire.
I'll come back to Councillor Watson, Councillor Smith.
Just very simple. So I'm living in the rural area and I have this wonderful idea and I want this enterprise to get going. So I'm going to be able to approach this company, which is Monmouthshire, only it's not Monmouthshire, and you will give me all the advice that I need. You'll help me complete my business plans and the prospects for this enterprise. Am I going to have to pay towards this?
The service we provide is initial services are free at the point of contact, but also we are closely networked with Business Wales. So we provide service up to a point, and then Business Wales will take them through to their business plans, etc. However, we do a lot of work specifically with some companies, which I think what we should be doing is taking them to a certain point. But when we're going out searching premises, putting them in touch with landlords, etc., then we should be starting to charge for that service, purely because a company would expect to pay for that. So it's how we actually look to sort of factor those opportunities in going forward. But it is something we've been looking at for a while, and actually, strangely, something the Wales Audit Office said that we should be doing.
Coming back, that initial sort of guidance would be there, given to me, and I wouldn't have to pay, and I can then move on with the next steps. Because what daunts so many people is the paperwork and the legalities of things, and they're frightened away. So thank you very much.
I mean, our responsibility is to be there for businesses who want to start up. So it would not be in our interest to charge for that initial support, because we want them to start here. So yeah.
Sorry, the only other point to make is because you mentioned about it is quite a complex world trying to navigate all of that and get the necessary advice and obviously move business forward and grow it. I think grant funding is also an important part of that, which brings its own layers of detail and bureaucracy and forms and guidance, etc. And I guess the team that Kath's got at her disposal through the RDP and her core team, they're very well placed to provide that advice.
Okay, members, Councillor Watts or any other members, do you have any further questions based on what's been said? So Watts, can you put your microphone on? Sorry.
I guess the kind of question I had was that, so we decided to go in this direction, but local authorities, we're talking about regional kind of growth, and we're talking about comparing to other regions throughout South Wales or whatever. But around the corner, what we have is a huge change for the local authority, and obviously there will be a strategic kind of change to how we operate, because I'd assume, let's be honest about it, it's quite likely that we're amalgamating with Newport. That's going to happen probably within the next 5 to 8 years. Where do you see that journey going, for this company? How will that change the nature of this company? How will you be able to absorb? How will you be able to sell that to Newport? How will Newport, if whatever this new entity is, soak this up, and how will they become part of that?
I guess it's in some respects, it's hard to answer that question 5 or 8 years out. But how I will answer it, I guess, is that 5 years is a long period of time. We're at a point now, for all the reasons that have been described, that we're looking to reposition and repurpose CMC Squared to take this direction going forward. And I think it offers the best chance possible, and I would probably say for the next 5 years as a starter, to deliver on what we need to do from a business growth and enterprise perspective. Hard to comment beyond that, but certainly I think what will naturally happen, I think as things become clear over the next few months in terms of how that model is looking to shape out, I think those networks are going to strengthen certainly with our neighbours, and I think we'll see where our collective strengths lie, I guess. Part of me, I guess, will wish this proposed model all the success, really, to a point where it can almost get itself into a point of being self-sustainable and operating on its own 2 feet, and that sort of null and voids, in a way, any conversation in the future about having to collapse or merge structures, etc. But again, it's a very difficult thing to answer at this point in time.
I guess that's where I was leaving it, really. I guess it's that we talked about the accountability and the directors on that, and whilst I see why you'd want to have it as a kind of living, breathing kind of organism that just goes off and does its own thing, equally it's using public money to sustain itself, yeah? So it has to be held to account by the local authority, and whatever local authority may be in the future. And I guess it's that ability in the future to see at what point you can rein it in, and how it itself then can become whatever it needs to become to fit into, whatever is around the corner, so to speak.
Yeah, well, it does. And I guess, because this question's been touched on a couple of times, the authority is the one that will remain absolutely in control on this. They're the ones who are redirecting the funds. They are the ones who can take a decision at any point in the future to not do so. So, the control remains firmly with the authority on that one. I think my point with regards to, maybe 5 years out, could it get itself into a self-sustainable position? Because if it could, that entertains some sort of different reflections and questions, really. But as I said, it's hard until we work through.
I accept that, Peter. I think the other thing is that I worry about is that I remember, and I was very cynical about CMC Squared, and I probably am to some extent, but it's that I'm really, if we're absolutely honest with ourselves, it kind of exploded into a whole new, this is what we're doing, and it sounded great, fantastic, but it really hasn't done, if you forgive me for saying, hasn't really done. I mean, if you ask most of the members what CMC Squared has done for the local authority or for the taxpayer, they won't be able to tell you. And it's probably my fault as well for not attending enough meetings to be able to tell them as well. But, it's been hard to extract some information from CMC Squared. And I've tried not to be cynical and to be open-minded about it, and I see its purpose. But I guess what I worry about is what happens next. Will we just let it kind of, we'll put it to the back of our minds that it'll go off, it'll spend X amount of, how many thousands, hundreds of thousands of pounds of public money, and then, is it worth investing that kind of money on an annual basis to get the return that you've been getting? That's my point. And that's been my point all along.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if I just repeat what I said earlier, the board got to that point where they were asking themselves that question around purpose. The paper's called a repurposing. It is about what is the company's purpose. And when you step back and look at the social aims of the company, social objects that were put in place originally, it was a question as to whether we are fulfilling those. So the repurposing is very much looking to respond to that, and it's a position that the board have taken, and it's been one that's obviously with officers of the senior officers within the organisation. There's been a mutual agreement, I guess. We're obviously bringing this through scrutiny and then through cabinet to obviously get that decision enacted, I guess. But yeah.
I think we all probably came into this with the same concerns. Is this the right delivery mechanism to take forward? Is this the right platform to take forward, some of the objectives which we've all agreed to in terms of various strategies like the Monmouthshire Enterprise and Growth Strategy? All of this stuff is not new to us in terms of what we want to see as an outcome as an authority. But is this the right strategy or the right vehicle to do so? And I think there's been some reassurances there, but maybe a cautious welcome maybe from us as a committee. But obviously we'll look at the recommendations shortly and vote on that. approve those. But in terms of just going back to some of the issues we've looked at, we've obviously talked about accountability, and I think that's key as a committee in terms of the governance structure and making sure that scrutiny retains that really important role in ensuring that the long-term success of this group. Also, in terms of the existing culture that exists within CMC Squared, how do we change that and move it forward in terms of what you're trying to achieve? We talked about whether this needs to be a standalone company and what benefits will actually be achieved from that. And we just need to have that clarity on what your ambitions are, so have that very succinctly put to us on a regular basis in terms of what you're trying to achieve. There was questions around the connection with the Business Improvement District, which as a committee we were all very supportive of. Discussion around some of the food opportunities in terms of food apprenticeships. Board members were touched on. Caldecott we mentioned in terms of the involvement in promoting and advising the community interest companies there. And talk about advice for companies and businesses that are looking for that first step and making sure that's free of charge in terms of the first instance. That was reiterated. And then the very interesting question at the end about in terms of what it means 5-8 years down the line in terms of how our environment's going to look from local government and what impact that will have. But I think if there's any potential this could be self-sustaining in 5 years' time, then that certainly would be something positive to look at in terms of how it sits with the local government reorganisation. So that's kind of my summary on what I think we've discussed. So just a very quick whistle-stop tour through that. But in terms of the recommendations themselves, as members, are we happy to approve those to go forward to Cabinet?
I say so, Chair, from my perspective, if I can just dip in first, only because I think your assessment is good. And I think that also I don't think we can afford, we clearly can't afford to stand still. That's not an option, is it? Otherwise we might just pack up and go home. So we always have to keep trying. So I would cautiously recommend that we accept these proposals.
Thank you, and thank you, members. So we'll agree that we'll take that approach forward and ask that this is approved, but with a cautious recommendation, certainly with this to come back at every opportunity that it can for scrutiny and ensure that it's that we're on top of this. But thank you very much. I think that was a really useful discussion.
Well, Dave's absolutely right. I think on the we've already kind of agreed, haven't we? But technically, really what we'd look to have is less mystery, more open and more transparency than what we've had before, and to simplify stuff. Don't be afraid to tell us if things are going wrong. We need to know that as well. And I think there's been a suspicion between CMC Squared and maybe this committee and maybe elected members.
Surely, Alan, that's the very reason why we agreed that you should represent us on this.
Right. But I could have a private.
You should be feeding back.
No, I should be. But the point is, it's been very difficult to extract some of the information.
Have you attended the meetings then?
Well, some.
What was your input into this?
Well, I mean, what I noticed was that so for example, is it appropriate to have this conversation in this, Doug's? Probably not, is it?
I think we can probably move on, but it's probably worth us, coming back to the governance. If that continues, your place on the board. Sorry, Peter, did you want to? I'd say if your place continues on the board, I don't know how that's going to work in terms of the governance. It'd be important for us to have regular feedback then, at the next opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, just to sum up from my perspective, it's a big thank you to the Select Committee really for the challenge, the inquiry, the scrutiny that's taken place is really helpful. Obviously, in terms of us sharpening everything up to go through Cabinet. And I think I just want to make that point again. The very fact that we're looking to reposition our economic development function and the RDP into this vehicle in its entirety, this will be being brought lock, stock and barrel back through scrutiny on an ongoing and regular basis, whether that's through the improvement plan and the monitoring of that or separately. So I can absolutely provide that reassurance in terms of ongoing monitoring.
Okay. Thank you, members, and thank you both. That was very interesting and informative and a useful paper. So if we move on to the next agenda item. Yeah. Are you okay to hold on for a little bit?
Yeah, we can hold on. I mean, I've got to pick up my boy at it'll take me 20 minutes to get back, 30 minutes to get back. I want to pick him up about 3:30, so.
We're going to be done by about 10.
Do you reckon?
We've got an hour then for the last agenda.
You're off, you Dave. You've lost weight, Dave, as well, haven't you? That'll be it, mate. And you've got a bit of suntan as well. You've been away? Yeah. Oh, that'll be it then. See you later.
Bye, Dave.
Chair, before, have we got any water here, Chair? Or shall I can go in the water if you want. Yeah? Oh.
No, we were outside. But we did have a little watch online.
A bit irritating, weren't they?
Yeah, I think the presentation is about 15 minutes and I'll leave you ample time. Chapman Mines.
You are Chepstow, aren't you? No. Beg your pardon, I'm thinking you were the wrong hat. Confused me slightly. It's all right, I'll put you now. It's okay. Thank you.
You've travelled down from Gwynedd.
Right, it's a bit further than Chepstow.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's downhill.
It's a beautiful day to travel now.
It's another route, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah. I apologise, it reminds me very much.
I must have a doppelganger, yeah.
Sorry about that, though. This is very nice if you talk it with the smile. It's a tone. I think that's very kind of you. It's very clean, isn't it? Right, okay.
Okay, so if we move on to agenda item 6, which is scrutiny of the proposal to support Monmouthshire businesses' competitiveness with a report attached. Officers, could you remind me, Peter, is it yourself who's going to present a presentation to us, and then?
Yes, I'll deliver the bulk, the majority of the presentation. Gillian, I think, is going to assist me just with a few of the slides, so it's Simon himself as well.
Perhaps Gillian and Simon, you would just introduce yourselves formally to the, because obviously we're webcasting here, so.
My name's Simon Ellis. I'm the CEO of Scootrade, which is a e-commerce analytics business that we've set up over the last couple of years. We've been mainly beta testing with clients around Wales, looking to make sure that we are developing the right product in order to meet the demands of the ever-growing e-commerce sector.
I'm Gillian Ellis. Obviously work with Simon, so we're both directors of the company, and we've been building a product, an online pre-analytics product and competitive analysis product, which is starting to gain a lot of traction now.
Okay, thank you both. If you want to take us through the presentation then, and then we'll move on to questions.
Okay, thank you everybody. It's me again. I'm really pleased to bring this report forward to the committee today. It sits very well on the agenda and alongside the discussion that I guess we've just had with regards to taking things forward with Monmouth Business and Enterprise. And I guess this proposal that I'm bringing forward really does cross-cut both Mon Business and Enterprise and I guess our iCounty strategies. So I've put a short presentation together. The reasons being that I got a couple of officers to take a look across the report, and it's always a bit of a difficult one when you get into e-commerce territory and trying to avoid the use of jargon, etc. And to explain what shouldn't be a complex world, but which is sometimes described as a complex world. But I've brought a presentation together today because I think it probably helps select committee and members to just actually follow their way through the report and to understand the proposal that's presented. So, in terms of what we're trying to achieve here with this proposal, and very much outlined in terms of the purpose of the report, we're obviously trying to assist Monmouthshire businesses here to improve their absolute competitiveness, their online trade, their export potential, and again, this is through access to an innovative, real-time cloud-based software solution that is Screwtrade, the Screwtrade platform, and very pleased to welcome Simon and Gillian here today to assist in responding to questions and obviously to contribute to the presentation. And I guess what is sitting behind this in terms of the backdrop of all of this and what's driving this proposal, I guess almost from the top to bottom of it all, we've got the Partnership Administration's ambition to create sustainable and resilient communities in Monmouthshire. Obviously that transcends not just our communities at large, but our business communities and our business networks. We have that priority outcome enshrined within the single integrated plan around making our county thrive. And there is a specific focus within that on business and enterprise. We have one of the 4 strategic priorities of the council, which is around promoting enterprise, economic development and job creation. And I guess where this dovetails then into iCounty and I guess the digital roadmap, iCounty does have, as one of its 3 pillars, an external focus that again looks at accelerating business growth, entrepreneurship and job creation. It also, at the very heart of it, I guess, and Kath has touched on it a couple of times in the earlier report and presentation, the rollout of superfast broadband, the rollout of high-speed broadband across the county offers huge opportunity, and I stress that word opportunity for the county, and exploitation of that opportunity is absolutely key. The business growth and enterprise strategy, which sits right in and alongside this, and we've talked earlier about the pillars, the 3 pillars that underpins that, and supporting business growth is one of those key pillars. Councillor Watts, made specific reference and focus around that earlier in the discussions. But there is a strategic aim sat within that pillar to aid and support e-commerce activity, and this very much takes us to the report and the proposal at hand. So in terms of the opportunity that presents here, and these figures are somewhat staggering when listed as they are, but the European, and that's not the global, that is the European online retail market is worth £400 billion. That market is growing at a rate of 15% per annum, and nearly 40% of all retail sales in the UK are online. Really stresses and highlights the significance that e-commerce plays in our day-to-day sort of transactions. And that in itself is increasing by 8% per annum, and I'm sure that's not a surprise to anybody within the committee. Amazon, eBay and Google, they do dominate that market with about 70% of entire revenues, but this does present, on the one hand, an enormous opportunity. It also presents quite a serious headache for online retailers. On the one hand, as the presentation touches on, it does open up significant global market opportunities, and for any size of business, whether that's a micro business right up to significant large scale businesses and in multiple sectors. But on the other hand, and particularly for, I guess, SMEs, which we have in abundance across the county, You know, the ever-changing costs that are involved, transaction costs, they are really a minefield, you know, and that is for small to medium enterprises, you know, whether that they are new or experienced. So why this solution? Why this approach? The authority's been undertaking quite a lot of work, probably over about a 12 to 18 month period now, I think, and looking into e-commerce solutions. That's been very much at the heart of, I guess, what I'd call the development stage of some of our core strategy work. I guess what we've observed really is that the current solutions that are out there in the market really provide static post-trade analysis and inventory management. Now that probably doesn't mean an awful lot to some of you, but what it means is that the current platforms that are in existence, the ones that I guess retailers have access to, they focus really on price rather than margin. So retailers are going out, they're selling their wares online, and those systems assist them by focusing on price and not the margin and the profit that they are generating from those products. So our investigation, our research took us into territory really, which was looking to try and source a solution that was a pre-trade solution that allowed retailers to understand in advance the margin they will be looking to make on each product. For those retailers to also recognise what products they can profitably sell into new countries and marketplaces. Furthermore, it offers opportunities with a pre-trade solution that it assists supply chain, fulfillment, distribution companies to seek those new opportunities to market their services. Now, I can't underestimate, I guess, trying to compile pre-trade data in this fashion. If you're trying to do this manually, and Simon, certainly Simon, because he is the detail man in all of this. Simon can probably touch on and provide a few examples in due course, but I think extremely time-consuming is probably an understatement, I think, in terms of trying to keep on top of that, and certainly impossible for a small business to manage on a daily task. Now, the authority was introduced to Screwtrade quite some time ago, actually. This is a long-standing relationship that we've developed with Screwtrade. We were, as a result of our research, we were put in touch with them through some of our innovation and business networks, and I guess the conversation has really developed and grown from there. Now, Screwtrade has successfully developed this pre-trade data analysis platform for the e-commerce industry, much as Simon explained by his introduction earlier. It is a low-cost and easy-to-use solution, which is absolutely key, particularly when we're looking at the SME market. It encourages and enables global online trade, which is absolutely what we should be aspiring to, and certainly for our Monmouthshire businesses. And it enables retailers to buy and sell any product instantly across the globe on a truly informed basis. There are no direct competitors that have been identified, and I say like-for-like competitors. There are a couple of, I guess, quasi-competitors in the marketplace, but they certainly don't offer a like-for-like comparison in terms of a low-cost, easy-to-use solution. They're generally geared around more significant companies. And the solution is certainly unique as being identified as that only pre-trade solution. Now, the company's had quite a number of success stories to date, and you know, there is an example there of that one retailer that you know, having an established online business and has seen growth of 200%, 1,000% growth across Europe using the software. You know, that's a tenfold improvement in profit, and Simon and or Gillian will certainly touch on that, and I guess other examples as we lean into things now. But certainly the market research that we've undertaken and looking across the county, you know, that's really highlighted an array of Monmouthshire businesses that are well placed to benefit from access to this solution. So I'm just going to hand over to Simon or Gillian. to Gillian. Gillian is just going to, I guess, give a bit of an overview of SKU-Trade platform. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Simon's just handing out a one-pager. It's just a brief trying to condense down what we do in a nutshell for retailers. It's quite difficult, really, because behind the scenes, what SKU-Trade actually does is very complicated. Peter touched on the minefield of the data points that you actually have to access to be fully informed, and the SKU-Trade platform has tried to pull all that information together. So we provide an easy-to-use e-commerce solution that enables retailers to collaborate with supply chains, delivery and fulfillment companies to quickly find the most profitable market opportunities available. I don't know whether you know the ins and outs of supply chains and delivery, but essentially it's about SKU-Trade helping Monmouthshire County retailers expand their reach, their sales reach, whether it be in the UK, whether it be across Europe, but by making an informed decision. It's about empowering the retailer by keeping them informed of real-time cost of selling online and providing competitive analysis that enables the user to act quickly and seize immediate advantage. So it's great, you know what your profit margins are going to be, you've checked, you know how much it's going to cost to have a package delivered, you know what the commissions are. These are all interchangeable. Again, this adds to the minefield of selling online or in store when you're looking at the size of your packages, the weights of packages. I don't know whether you've ever taken a look at just at Royal Mail and the sheer amount of information on the number of items, the sizes, letters versus small letters versus parcels, large parcels, etc. There's a lot of information there. Once you've collated your information, are you making a profit on your product, you can then run a competitive analysis. So what's the closest price to your product? Are you pricing yourself out of the marketplace? Are you at the right level? Are you still making a profit? Is this the country for you? Do you need to look at other countries? And once you have that information, you can act on that detail very, very quickly, because it's all great having the competitive information to hand, but you also need to act quickly upon that. So the idea with SKU-Trade is to become part of a community, to link into supply chains. It's about strengthening existing partnerships and creating new relationships. As I mentioned, SKU-Trade is simplifying what is a complicated, manual and very time-consuming process. It's automating the process so it's simple and it's quick. I touched on whether you're selling online or in-store, it doesn't matter. You can be aware of all your costs. It's about making that informed decision. Okay, so directed opportunities. It's about highlighting the best market opportunities anywhere in Europe. So, for example, say you're selling a hockey stick. You do a check on your prices. You want to know your profit, whether it be a percentage or a sterling markup. You want to know how much it's going to cost to deliver that product, looking at the weight and the size of the parcel. And then you realise in the UK, you're not competitive, or you may make a couple of pounds on each hockey stick. You expand out your search using the SKU-Trade platform. You can then look at France, Germany, and you realise actually you're better positioned to sell your products in Germany than you are in the UK. And it may be a market that a retailer hasn't necessarily thought about investigating because it's a minefield. They're nervous about entering into a European market that maybe they don't know much about. But immediately with the SKU-Trade platform, you have that information to hand. You can see it's going to be profitable. We're looking at selling goods at a protected or a continuously profitable rate by collating data from across the e-commerce community. So again, you're looking at Amazon, eBay, Alibaba. You might have your own online store. You might just sell in store, but you still need to be competitive. How many people walk into a store, check the price, and then go and have a look online? So you need to be aware of all the associated costs and protect your profit margins. Again, entering into the competitiveness. You have all the information to hand. You know whether you're going to be competitive. But it's also enabling the smaller retailers to become competitive and on an even footing with the larger retail organisations. The larger retail organisations have teams of people looking at this kind of data. They're analysing thousands of data points across the internet. It may be market research that they're looking at, but they tend to be teams, 4, 5, 6 people, and it takes them around about a week to collate the kind of information that Screwtrade can pull together just within a few clicks and a few seconds. And as Peter mentioned, it's all about managing your margins, protecting those margins. It may be that you're selling a product in the UK, and as more and more people realise that's a top seller on Amazon, and so therefore more people start selling that same product, because this is how a lot of people are working online. They're taking a look, they're looking to see who the top sellers are, they're selling them, it squeezes your margins down because prices are getting lower and lower. However, it allows you then to look across Europe, and this is what's happened with one of our users of the Screwtrade platform. He found his margins were getting narrower and narrower. He didn't want to drop his prices any further, and then on investigating France, he found that he was going to make a larger profit in France. He's now expanded out into France, Germany and Italy as a direct result of using the Screwtrade platform, which Simon's going to go into in more detail. As Peter mentioned, I mean, the figures are just astounding. It's a huge, huge number. 400 billion just in Europe. Initially, the Screwtrade product is concentrated on Europe, but there are plans to look out across North America, China, and the rest of Asia. There's a 50% growth rate. 40% of sales in the UK are online. It's increasing by 8% per annum. And as Peter mentioned, it's both an enormous opportunity, but equally so a headache. And the idea with Screwtrade is to simplify that process. Okay, so we have a production-ready solution June 2015 with an agreement to provide access to 500 companies within Monmouthshire at a significant discount. The unique focus is on aggregating, normalising and analysing pre-trade data analytics. And it's cost-effective. It's not going to be an expensive tool. We recognise smaller retailers. It's difficult to survive. They don't want to be paying a lot of money per calendar month. So we aim to keep that at a minimum. It's about providing an informed procurement and selling opportunities for users of the platform. It's highly scalable. As I mentioned, we're aggregating, normalising and analysing pre-trade data analytics. There's a lot of information there. We can add on more users, so whether it's delivery companies such as Royal Mail, DHL, fulfillment companies, so smaller fulfillment companies who are looking to compete with the likes of Amazon and eBay. It's highly scalable. And we have successful customer proof points, providing a 200% growth through the use of the platform and a dynamic, transparent platform. I'm going to invite Simon up now just to take you through the success story.
Thank you. What I'd really like to point out is that we wanted to look at what could help local businesses in Wales. And this company we targeted because they were already an online retailer focusing on electrical accessories. But we wanted to understand the nuances of their business with regards to being in Wales, especially on what were the certain issues that they had. And so they've been trading already for about 6 to 8 years online, and they had their own website, they didn't have a store. And we came in and looked at what their main issues were. And one of the main issues was when we spoke to their distribution providers, one of which is the Royal Mail, was that to bring goods into Wales and then export them out again was very, very expensive. For instance, to get a pallet of goods delivered to Porthmadog in Gwynedd is more expensive from Birmingham than it is to ship a pallet of goods to the south of France. So if you've got to encounter all these costs, it makes you uncompetitive. So we looked at things in a different way, and we looked at things from a pre-trade basis. Inventory management solutions, of which there are many, focus on stock control and pricing and post-trade analytics. Whereas if you're going to enter a new market, you really need to know up front what all your costs are before you essentially jump in. The marketplaces that take so much online traffic, such as the eBays, the Amazons, the Rakutens, their business model really is that they don't really care whether you're making a profit or not, as long as you're listing and driving consumer traffic to their sites. So what we wanted to do is come up with a solution whereby we took all the nuances of e-commerce, essentially aggregated them, but made them simple to utilize within the application. Now, if you're looking to be competitive across Europe with a single product, we've drilled it down so that you need to really look at about 100 different data points for that one product on a daily basis. So if you've got 100 products that you're retailing, you can understand the level of data that you have to run through manually. We went to see Garmin, who is a manufacturer of sat-nav equipment, and they have a team of 20 people just looking at this data manually on a day-to-day basis. And our system allows the smaller SMEs to compete with those larger organisations and can show where there are opportunities, where the profits are, where the margins are better, and the best partnerships to take you to market. So not only is it better for me to use one delivery provider, if I'm based in Wales and my goods are manufactured in Germany, should I not just try and have a partnership with a fulfillment provider in Germany to sell those goods there as well? And that's where we would come in with our application. So if we take you can see the top row is on this line here, is when the company first started using the application in the UK. And this was the growth. Now, what we've also seen is that although people think that the commission rates on marketplaces are very simple, 10, 15%, 30% in some cases, actually this provider, this retailer, his costs on a monthly basis are roughly between 50 and 70% of his fees go to the marketplaces and his delivery costs, etc. So if he's charging £10, he's only actually seeing a maximum of £5 out of that £10. So it's not being knowledgeable about that minefield of all the costs that you need to incur in order to reach that global marketplace. And that's the solution that we've come up with. You can see that again, started in France, wasn't previously exporting. Now they're selling as many units in France as they are selling in the UK. They've expanded into Germany, Italy and Spain. Germany is, in the last few months, has almost come up to the UK level. So there's much more margin available in possibly other territories, especially as we're taking into account exchange rate fluctuations, etc. with the euro, and the application again does that. And we're also looking to be more sustainable. So if you're getting goods produced in one country, why are you shipping them all the way to Wales to be shipping them back again, when we should be obviously looking at what transport is necessary in order for you to deliver your product? And that's the basis of what Screwtrade has developed. And in beta testing, and Amazon with this particular client have told this client that they are the quickest to react out of any provider in the UK to nuances of their marketplace. So if they decide to move his products into a different category, which is quite common, then he can react overnight using Screwtrade, whereas the other providers in the marketplace on the inventory management side operate on a 3-day lag. So we're 3 days ahead, where they could be losing money. Right. In terms of the data that we're looking at, because we're looking at everything on a pre-trade rather than a post-trade basis. That's quick.
Okay, so let's go back to Monmouthshire businesses in this respect. I'll try and keep mindful. I got about 8 to 10 slides. I'm going to try and keep this to about sort of 6, 7 minutes. Okay. So The benefits for membership businesses, really important to obviously sort of emphasise this, and I'll talk about the nature of the agreement that we're looking to lean into as well. So obviously looking to get membership businesses to subscribe to the platform, and obviously for them to identify those profit and sales opportunities, that can be exploited, and as been touched on by both Gillian and Simon. This provides a real competitive advantage to membership businesses in the global e-commerce market. We've got a county-wide test bed that we're looking to operate, and the agreement will see, I think, as Simon or Gillian touched on a few minutes ago, we're looking at up to 500 membership businesses being able to access significantly discounted subscription to the platform now for a 2-year period. And that in itself will bring a package of training and support and advice to membership businesses to allow them to obviously exploit the platform. It's also, and again it's been touched on, it's of use to local businesses who just want to be competitive, even though they don't actually retail online. They want to understand as to how their in-store prices compare. And that is important. That is important for local retailers, high street shop retailers. And certainly Simon's touched on that scope to reduce transportation for delivery of product. There's also benefits there for suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, the fulfillment providers as well, and their ability to market to empowered and informed audiences. Something for exploration, I think. It's not at the heart of this proposal, but it could also be used as a procurement tool for the authority in terms of us looking to identify as to whether we are making purchases of goods at the most competitive prices. But some discussions to be had with procurement colleagues on that one, given preferred supplier contracts and arrangements. Very much in terms of why this proposal is unique in terms of, with what I'm bringing forward, it's multifaceted, is underpinned by 3 key things for me really. There's the alignment with the business growth and business growth strategy, our drive around ICT exploitation. There's the specific support that we are going to look to obviously bring in for up to 500 membership businesses that look to subscribe. It does also offer business support into SKU Trade. There's a mutual support both ways on this one to allow them to be successful in really driving their product forward. The cloud-based solution of their product. And this really does demonstrate a creative initiative being taken, I think, by the authority in assisting membership businesses to grow. The key success factors for us on this, and by key success factors, what I mean is the things that will allow this whole proposal to really motor the authority and I guess Kath and Amon, business and enterprise team, providing ongoing support in and alongside SKU Trade to ensure that we drive take-up across the county. There's also the support from the same team and the fact that that is running in parallel with other key exploitation work that we've secured funding for. Superfast Cymru, we've talked about earlier today, Super Connected Cities voucher scheme, where we're seeing a lot of success and a lot of businesses starting to sign up even in these first 6 months. And the Welsh Government's business exploitation programme that is just being geared up now. And members, I think there will be an all-members seminar scheduled in due course. We're looking to try and secure a date for that, where colleagues from Welsh Government will come and present to all members on that initiative. But alongside that, Kath and the team are undertaking a data mapping exercise at the minute. We talked about the Tech City report earlier and the clustering of tech industry and the growth of tech industry in the county. But this data mapping exercise is actually looking at digital maturity of businesses across the county and understanding as to what assistance we need to provide into them. But what that also gives us, it gives us a supplementary benefit in actually identifying those businesses who are very well placed to actually capitalise on the SKU Trade platform and product. I wouldn't have done my job, I guess, if I hadn't undertaken an assessment of key risk as part of the business case that underpins all of this. I'm not intending, given time, going through all of this. Those risks are outlined in the report. and the mitigations are all suitably in place. I am certainly satisfied that we have mitigated key risks to a minimum. But of course, any proposal is not without risk, and I just make that point, I guess. In terms of the resource implications for the authority, and I guess sort of centred within the recommendations of the report, we are looking for pre-revenue funding of £50,000 to be provided to Screwtrade here. So that is the authority providing £50,000 to Screwtrade. That again allows up to 500 Monmouthshire businesses to have heavily discounted subscription for a 2-year period. We are looking to request funding from reserves for that £50,000. And that money is not going out of the door and disappearing. We are putting agreements in place as we speak now, whereby we will look to recoup that £50,000 by putting in place a commission arrangement as part of the subscriptions that Monmouthshire businesses will sign up to. The funding is, as I said, it's effectively that pre-order that we're making on behalf of Monmouthshire businesses that will subsequently be repaid. We will have a robust monitoring and evaluation framework in place around this, and that doesn't need to be hugely extensive and wide-ranging. At the heart of this, I guess, it's really quite narrow. What we're looking to do for those subscribing businesses is to increase sales and profitability. That's the bottom line on this. Those measures that we often talk about, they are pretty sharp. We are looking to monitor the outcomes and the benefits. I know we talked about it in the last report, and making sure that those arrangements for monitoring and scrutiny were robust. We will be, I guess, on an ongoing basis, looking to report up and into the Digital in Place programme boards, but of course Economy and Development Select Committee has got a key role to play really in this. So the recommendations are, as outlined in the report. I guess, Chair, you will touch on those. They should be consistent on my slide with what is in the report that has been presented. And certainly in terms of next steps for this, really, off the back of what I hope to be some positive support from this committee, the Screwtrade are looking now to successfully deploy their cloud-based solution. That is imminent. We are having ongoing consultation with finance, procurement and legal colleagues to make sure that the contract and the memorandum of agreement that we're looking to put in place is robust and sound, and all the necessary due diligence has been put in place. We are proposing to go to early June Cabinet to seek a recommendation and approval. And we are also looking to engage Monmouthshire businesses in the user acceptance testing on the cloud-based solution, so that we make sure that we get that local comfort and reassurance around the product. We will be doing a targeted marketing campaign, as you can naturally expect. We're looking to drive take-up on this one, not just to benefit Monmouthshire businesses, but obviously to ensure that we get our £50,000 recouped. And certainly, I guess, and collectively, Screwtrade and ourselves will be looking to obviously engage and support Monmouthshire businesses now over the term of the agreement. So I thank the committee for what is hopefully a useful presentation and provides the background to the proposal that's being brought forward.
Okay, thank you all. Just before we take questions from members, in terms of some of the risks that were identified within those, there's some sort of caveats and things that, for example, funding is predicated on investment being secured by the company, and funding would only be released by the authority if a fully functioning product was developed. Should those be within the recommendations, just reinforced in terms of we recommend this, but on the basis of these caveats, if you like?
The recommendations, I think, refer to delegated responsibility being granted to senior officers and members, and I was looking for that delegation via Cabinet to also ensure that all the memorandum of agreement, the contract that sits alongside that covers off those points sufficiently.
Okay, so that all falls under that, the MOU and okay, so that's covered into that. Okay, I've got questions myself, but I'll go to members of the committee first to raise with any queries regarding the presentation. Councillor Watts, then? Go for it, Councillor Watts.
I was just trying to be polite. The platform itself and the questions are relevant. So basically what you're saying is like a one-stop shop for effectively retailing overseas then if you're trying to sell a product. So issues with postage and currency and stuff like that. I mean, how you talked about the accuracy of that information. As you know, currency changes on a hourly, minute, day basis or whatever.
It's on a 15-minute delay with currency fee.
Is it? Okay, that's quite interesting. And obviously with and I guess it was more about the kind of exchange rates and then, you know, quantitative easing and stuff and what's happened with the euro and how expensive it is then to kind of sell in that environment. What impact is that going to have on businesses in the UK and specifically in this case, obviously in Monmouthshire? It's going to be tougher, isn't it?
Well, what we're looking to do is for you to be able to, it's for you to be able to, we can't tell retailers what to do with the information, but we can tell retailers and supply chains how they can effectively market their services. So if you're a retailer, you should be able to use the platform to see that your current supplier, there's no way that you could possibly be competitive selling that particular product in the UK. But there might be an opportunity for you to sell it in Germany. And if there's not, then surely that's a conversation for you to go back to your supplier and say, I can't be competitive at the prices you're selling to me for. So with an example with the electrical accessory marketplaces, which is trying to be changed in the UK, is there's 14 levels of distribution in the UK on electrical accessory goods. So you can see that for the end retailer, they need to try and find possibly sometimes a better source of that product, and in order that they can be competitive. And that's what we want to try and be in terms of being transparent, is pointing out where you need to be in order to be effectively competitive when somebody walks into your shop or if you want to sell online, and point out those opportunities to you in a quick, easy to use format that doesn't take you days and days to produce.
Okay.
So in terms of the success we've had with companies, in terms of the beta testing and using essentially the server-based solution that we've developed, is that they've seen that their margins have actually been improved by selling abroad.
Can I ask you then, how long have you been at this then? How long has this been in operation?
It's been, we formed the company in September 2012, and then we've been beta testing the company, the actual product, with various companies to make sure it works, and it shows that it has. We come from a background of building technology for investment banks, and obviously you need to make sure things work before you deploy them.
Yeah, sure.
And that's where our background is.
Okay.
So.
The product that's been in use has been, it's called an access version. And not to get too technical, we've not been able to roll that out to different companies because the code has been
it's too expensive
onshore.
as well, because it's all server-based and it's Microsoft tools as well, as so you would have to pay licensing fees on all the different software that we use, etc.
So this is why we're developing the cloud, so we can roll that out.
All right. Okay. So I think it sounds really interesting. But what I guess more specifically, you know, my job is to ensure that we're getting some, you know, benefit to Monmouthshire businesses, and you've offered a discount there. What is the discount for them? Is that commercially sensitive at this moment, or is it?
No, I mean, we can say that our average price point for retailers we envisage would be around about the £33 mark per month, but we're going to offer Monmouthshire businesses that product for £10 a month.
Right, so it's heavily discounted.
So heavily discounted for the first 2 years.
For the first 2 years. Okay. And how many businesses do we, you know, the analysis that we've done, market testing or whatever, for the authority, Peter, how many businesses do we look to? Who are we targeting?
Well, just drop your mic on.
So
I think there's a whole array of businesses really, because I guess if members of the committee have properly captured the essence of the proposal that's being brought forward, you know, we've got distribution and fulfillment companies, you know, we've got retailers, you know, we've got a plethora of all of these companies sat across the county. And I guess further to that, and I guess what is unique about this, and what we, you know, what I I've been looking for in terms of my research, is to identify a solution that doesn't just obviously lend benefit to some of those bigger companies within the county. It actually, it actually assists, the smallest retailer and actually puts them on an equal footing. So it's probably the question is what company does it not benefit rather than which one does it.
But then let me put it first. What company does it benefit? The only company that does benefit is Monmouthshire.
Yeah, okay, so, all right, just give me a second. Just something I prepared earlier. Preempting this question. Just one moment. So I guess in terms of sort of warehousing and logistics side of things, so we got the likes of, I guess, Hicks Logistics in Caldecott, Zenith Logistics, we got food and drink retailers, we got Anchor Hill Vineyards in Monmouth, Kingston Brewery in Tintern, Chandler Teas in Abergavenny. I can go on, but I've got quite a long list here. So there's a lot of opportunity really that we've sourced through the market testing that we've undertaken. Yeah, well, something to consider actually. I mean, I mentioned earlier about the user acceptance testing. Certainly, Councillor Watts, if you're interested in providing some. Well, no, well, but it just in terms of providing that feedback, into the design and making sure that it is intuitive and easy to use. Really, we've got to make sure that even that novice small retailer finds this platform easy to use. That is our target on this thing.
Yeah, and
Sorry, Councillor, what's your microphone?
so other companies that provide financial services maybe online have news feeds. Do you do that on your website? Do you, if there's a kind of some specific issue that happens in Europe that affects some point of trade or some sector, is that where you rely on them to kind of do their homework themselves?
Both Simon and I are from a financial background, actually, so obviously the newsfeed, it's whatever's happening in the news is very powerful, but we've got to take a phased approach with the product. I'm quite often saying to Simon, he's got to rein it back. He's like yourself, ahead with the product, with the cloud-based product. We've got to do it in a phased approach. So initially, no, it won't be, but certainly in the future moving forwards, that newsfeed, it's reasonably simple to put into the product. We have looked at it. It's just taken a newsfeed from somewhere that we're all happy with.
Yeah.
But we're taking a phased approach to the building and the rollout of the product. And so in the initial phase, it won't be.
So I think it's fair to add that if a news point arises whereby, as recently as it has over the last 12 months, where a European country changes their VAT rate, we won't necessarily have a news feed reporting that, but the application will take that into account on any calculations or estimates it does for users of the application.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to state that we will keep the data up to date as possible, but the separate services such as adding a news feed or a blog.
Okay, I guess my point is that, so if we're investing in this, or we're on behalf of the community, the business community, I guess it's that exposure to risk really that we're also should be, we have a moral duty to ensure that businesses in Monmouthshire have some kind of protection and that they're informed about the choices that they make and exposure to risk.
Yes.
I guess my point is here that I can't access the website to examine whether or not I feel comfortable with the level of exposure and risk that some of those businesses have until I actually know what businesses are involved in it and what their market is, which you've kind of explained, haven't you, quite articulately. And then and really that's it really. That's the only thing that makes me a little bit negative about it. Chair.
Can I just one quick point? Sorry. It's actually, over the last month, UKTI have started launching workshops for companies across the UK on how you should be selling online in new territories. So we're actually ahead of the curve with regards to what UKTI are trying to do with local with businesses across the UK, and they're encouraging people to sell on Amazon and eBay, and we're possibly being invited to those workshops in the future. But we're giving you the tools that, for an SME, that you would only be able to access if you're a large-scale enterprise, with regards to your online selling or your export potential of your products and the goods that you wish to sell.
All right, so I don't want to hog the floor. So.
We can come back to you, Councillor Watts, at the end. Okay, I'll Councillor Edwards, then Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm sorry, I'm completely confused. I feel as if it's confused.com, to be honest. Can we just have some simple explanation? Where is all your information come from to start with?
That's one of the benefits of the product. One of the benefits of the product is that we aggregate both manual, static data and electronic data. So, for instance, some of the marketplaces, some of them will provide you with certain levels of data electronically, and then some other forms of data from those same marketplaces will only be available in manual format, PDF format, for instance. So we're taking that information and putting it into an easy-to-use application. We're going to delivery providers. If they have a direct feed that we can plug into the application, we will do. Otherwise, we'll create templates whereby that information can be uploaded, and you'll be able to see when the last upload date was with regards to how up-to-date that information is. We'll make sure that we're going back to those companies all the time and gaining that information manually. Otherwise, we'll be taking that information in via an API electronically. So,
do you find that these companies that you go to manually are quite happy to feed that information to you?
if it's made easy enough to do so, then yes. So we'll create templates for certain companies to be able to upload. But what we're trying to do is make it so easy for anyone to utilise that it's essentially a spreadsheet if you want the manual process to upload. Otherwise, it will be a direct feed, and if, as and when you change your information, the information will change on our solution. So it's, the core of our solution is a calculation engine, working out all these estimates as to what the best route to market is for you.
Most companies these days have an API. They have that automatic link where they update the pricing and then they publish it out to.
Update what, sorry?
Most companies, now that we're gaining information from, have an automatic link. It's called an API, so the information is readily available. So whenever there's any price updates, changes, they send that information out electronically, and it can just be updated into the system.
So how huge is this database that you've got?
It's going to be massive. It's essentially if I can describe it succinctly, I would say it's both a one-to-one relationship and a one-to-many type of relationship database structure, whereby for an average retailer looking at 100 products, you would probably have to analyse easily over 100,000 data points within that database to make sure that you're competitive and profitable and empowered to move forward. So that's the size of what we're trying to put together, or what we have been putting together. So.
Thanks, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Smith?
I've tried to simplify it for myself. Doug and I are in the same grade, aren't we, Doug? Yes. Basically, your system is about exchange rates, national exchange rates, transport costs for products, a quick updating of that information, comparative products, those come into your equation, and possible markets, but takes no account, cannot, of the production costs of the products of the people who are retailing. So it's a quick serve, transport availability, other products or other like products.
No, the actual supply costs, whether they're your own supply costs or the cost of the product as you get it from your supplier, manufacturer, you put that data into the system. So it takes that into account.
Can I give an example of there's a large national opticians who work on a franchise basis, and in speaking with one of these franchises, one of the branches, they were asked by head office to sell sunglasses online. So they chose Amazon and they chose eBay, and they thought they were doing really well. They were selling 500 units per calendar month. This is across all the branches, on the various sunglasses. And then at the end of the quarter, so 3 months down the line, they were given an invoice. And then at that stage, they found out they were making a 66% loss on each unit over Amazon, and a 16 pence loss on each unit. So that's 500 units, each branch, per month, over eBay. And if they'd been using Screwtrade, they could have performed an analysis on the cost, on the profit margins, to make sure that they had considered all commissions or fees, the size of package, the weight of the package, where it was being delivered to, and that would have been the strength of the product for them. But at the same time, then perform that competitive analysis to make sure they're not pricing themselves out of the market. So whatever profits they're making on a set of sunglasses, for example, they would still be competitive on the market.
Because a comparison is going to be with the price that's being sold elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Fine. Yes, that's my thinking.
And so it took into account the supply costs that they were having to incur.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. I've just got a couple of questions. They're a bit disparate and unconnected, so bear with me if you wouldn't mind. The first is just around, and I suppose it's more for Peter, in terms of how we recoup the costs. What's the sort of model that we're looking at? If you just, 1 second. So you're talking about a 5-year period that will try and achieve that funding back. So what model's going to be used? Just from my own sort of quite crude calculations, the potential for Screwtrade to, in terms of your revenue generation, if you worked on 500 companies in Monmouthshire, so the very maximum, receiving this product, in the first 2 years, it would be £60,000 a year. Is that right, based on the £10 a month? So that would be your own income generation from Monmouthshire businesses, but that's looking at a maximum of 500.
The £10 per month will be aimed at retailers. Obviously, if we're dealing with, and we're giving a discount as well. So for the first 2 years, the discount will be enforced, and then we'll increase the costs after that fact. And we're planning on giving a percentage back to Monmouthshire, both on those fees. And if we're going to a national provider, delivery provider, and they're paying us a bigger fee to reach the community of Monmouth users, we'll also give you 20% of that revenue, or up to 20% of that revenue back as well. So it's not just the retailer revenue that will be out gaining commissions on, it's other revenue as well.
Okay, brilliant.
So.
And then I just had a question in here. It talks about the potential for us to use this as a procurement tool within the authority itself. What have we actually, and I think that sounds like a great idea, but have we actually looked at what potential savings could be achieved through using this tool for that purpose as an authority?
Not as yet, and I think I touched on in my presentation, that doesn't sit as, I guess, it's not core within the proposal, but there is an opportunity to explore that. I think, as I said, I'll need to speak to procurement colleagues. I mean, I think we're all aware of the arrangements with the Welsh Purchasing Consortium, preferred supplier contracts, framework contracts, etc., etc. So it's not as simple as, for example, it is as simple as using the Screwtrade platform and sort of saying, well, we're paying that for that product, and actually we can get it for less here. That's fine. There's a conversation with procurement colleagues, I guess, to understand as to, okay, well, what is the consequence of that then in terms of our future procurement decisions?
And then obviously the key to the success of this is going to be ensuring our businesses are aware of the product and it's in a simplistic form so they can this generates demand. You talk about having a sales and marketing strategy for you as a company. What are we doing as an authority? What resource are we going to put into this to ensure it's a success? And does that then end up meaning there's a financial implication in terms of putting resource into the marketing? I don't envisage there is, but it's just looking for that reassurance that we'll do everything to support Screwtrade to make it a success if we're investing this money into it.
I think, as I touched on earlier, the Monbiz and Enterprise team, Kath's team, will be working alongside Screwtrade. I don't envisage any further outlay beyond the £50,000 we can accommodate that with in the resources and expertise that we've got across, I guess, Screwtrade and ourselves. And certainly in terms of the awareness campaign, we're looking at, I've mentioned user acceptance testing, which I think will stimulate some interest in the first instance anyway. But I think beyond that, we will be looking to attract businesses and actually bring them to the table so that we can actually almost work a bit more hands-on with them for them to really grasp and understand the potential of the product. Because I think as members of the committee might understand, we've been here for, 40 minutes maybe on this one. And I think, you're getting to a point of sort of a grasping and understanding the potential of this. Businesses should get, should grasp it quickly, but it's really that one-on-one sort of support. And I think naturally the momentum will just build off the back of that. We should see word of mouth, contact going out there then, and the successes that businesses are getting. So.
Great. Councillor Smith?
Yeah. How many manufacturing businesses have we got in Monmouthshire?
Can everyone use their mics, please? Sorry, just a reminder.
It's just, so have you got a kind of a time scale, a target time of looking to expand in those markets? I mean, how much more kind of resources would you have to put into that to benefit, the potential users of Monmouthshire and the businesses in Monmouthshire, really?
I think we as part of this essential first phase, we concentrate on Europe, and we look at what opportunity is available in that space first, and then we look at where the best opportunities are, and if there's a drive from UKTI or from, for instance, the third largest marketplace in the world, Rakuten, are actually doing a drive to export UK goods out to Japan and the Far East at the moment. So they're giving preferential terms to UK businesses to do so on their marketplace in those territories. So if there are nuances of the online e-commerce marketplace such as that, we will focus on those activities. So wherever it is best.
Okay. I mean, I guess what I'm looking for is for you some kind of assurance here that if you were looking to expand into that market, that would be extended and that discount would be extended.
It's for the physical use of the system in Monmouthshire. So if
So
wherever you're going in the world,
right,
you can contract with a fulfillment provider in Australia,
right, okay,
and you're still using the application within Monmouthshire.
thank you.
Yeah, just one further point to add, really. I mean, I guess the commission that we generate back and that we recoup, that is based upon this, the subscriptions and the users that are signed up to using the platform.
Yeah.
Obviously, the profits themselves are, a commission that you secure off the platform, which is minuscule, as you touched on earlier. Those profits obviously flow back to Monmouthshire businesses as we would want them to.
Okay.
Members, do you have any further questions?
I got it.
Oh, you've got that.
Okay, 6,000 businesses, of which 10.5% are manufacturing. Service sector is 83.6, but that includes retail. So clearly this platform has huge opportunities for retail and wholesale. So, yeah.
Well done.
Okay. I think the one thing that's quite striking is it's really good to see that everything that we've talked about in many of the committee meetings over the recent months is being brought to life with this. Actually, it's something that's really exciting, and actually it's good to see the innovative approach being taken that we keep talking about, and the context within which we're operating around the digital agenda and digitalisation of retail, for example, in this case. I think it's just really key, and yeah, it's really useful to see. But in terms of the recommendations, members, what are our feelings on that? Do we want to...
I mean, I just, sorry, I guess my final bit is that you obviously go, and I would imagine, yeah, that it's as much as you like Monmouthshire, you'll be going to other local authorities and offering them a similar deal. Like, can we be assured that we're not?
We won't be offering the same deal.
So it's an exclusive deal for one day only to the residents, or the 5 minutes. All right, I want to go as well. I've got to pick my son up. Okay, so I haven't got a problem with it. I propose that we go along with this. I don't know how you feel, Doug.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with this. You know, and in view of 2.2 as well, which is the safeguard side of it, you know, I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Okay, so
Okay.
we'll support that as a committee going forward then, and look forward to seeing the Cabinet decision. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you. It was a really clear report and presentation, because what could be quite, not confusing, but you know, it's quite new to us as members, has actually been made very simple and straightforward, so thank you. Yeah, and that's really good.
Good luck with it. Thank you. Very nice to meet you. Thank you. Good luck with it. Thank you.
I'm conscious of time, so no, Armand, you've got to head off, I myself as well. But in terms of, we'd move on to the forward work programme first, and then the Cabinet planner. Please, yeah, that would be great.
Just to quickly mention on the work programme, at the last meeting, some of you will have stayed for an afternoon session on tourism workshop, which we had with Ian Saunders. And in that discussion, we didn't have loads of members, but in that discussion, I think we did conclude some useful ways in which we could drive tourism. And a lot of that related to problems around our current planning policy framework. So given that it's in our work programme to sort of look at planning, the committee last year agreed they'd like to include it in the work programme. We were sort of waiting for the new head of planning to be appointed. and that person will be in post very shortly. So it's proposed that at our next meeting in June, we invite that person along and we discuss some of the areas that the members felt appropriate to discuss following the meeting on tourism. And I can give you a quick sort of flavour of some of those things, which we can discuss with the new person. The fact that we don't have permissive hotel policy, which articulates what the council would like to see and where. There's a suggestion that we could look at a supplementary planning guidance to cover visitor accommodation and development. There's other issues such as there's no hotel retention policy or any policy that seeks to retain other forms of visitor accommodation. And I think that the team feel that something like that would greatly benefit the sort of accommodation supply. There are certain other aspects in our sort of planning policy that I think we feel is very much can't do. And instead of sort of saying to businesses, there are lots of opportunities and you can do this and you can do that, it sort of seems that we're saying you can't do this, you can't do that. And as a result, things like the luxury camping market, the camping pods, those sort of things can't happen currently. So, I mean, without going through it all, we've been given some sort of indications from sort of the tourism officers of what things are sort of problematic, and also a report was undertaken on Monmouthshire tourist accommodation development opportunities. So we'd like, with your agreement, to table that report to the next meeting and then to invite the new head of planning to have a discussion with us and with the tourism officers and the team, and we can sort of look at whether we can resolve some of these things. So that would be your main item for June. You've also got the improvement plan and outcome agreements, a statutory report on there, and you've got budget monitoring. But your main item that I guess you would allocate an hour to an hour and a half on would be on that, and then half an hour or so for the other items. Does that sound okay?
In the planning and development, over the page, there's the 106, section 106 agreements. Is that going to be discussed as well?
I think that might be a subject for another meeting, but at the time the committee wasn't sure what they wanted to discuss on planning, so they said, well, potentially section 106.
I think 106 is important because there seems to be some very relevant issues to do with the appropriation of money from 106, and the bank has moved certainly in Chepstow.
You'd want to appoint the new person to sit on
so
that.
106
You put it
is
under
quite important.
We could put section 106 because community infrastructure levies coming in July, because I questioned that as well and said that would be a useful thing to update. So if we combine those two, will that be all right in July? And did you mention a new person?
And also at the next meeting of this committee, we could nominate somebody to sit on the Section 106 working group, because as of the last year, we haven't had a member of this committee sat on that group. I think it was felt that nobody actually wanted to do that last year, but it was actually a recommendation of this committee in a report that they did on Section 106 several years ago that suggested that a member of this committee ought to be on that group. So when the new committee meets at the next meeting, we could agree a person to sit on that.
How often do they meet? Section 106 committee?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check.
And I haven't mentioned this to Hazel as well either, but it might be worth as well, because obviously we're coming to the end of the sort of council year, that I put a report together in terms of what we've achieved over the last 12 months and not present that, but give that a paper copy to members around the June meeting, because if you're happy with that, just to show what we've managed to achieve as a committee and what we've looked at. A couple of pages, end of year report type. And then should we just look at the cabinet work planner, if I can find it? I don't think there's anything. A lot of the items on there in the immediate sort of May meeting we've already covered. Yeah, Apprentice had CMC Squared. We've had Watchers come up today. People and Organisational Development Strategy. Strong communities. And then long term, the only thing I was thinking might be of interest might be the solar farm business case, because whilst it's a planning issue, it's around the income generation from renewable energy. I suppose that comes under our remit. So if we could make a recommendation that I don't know quite when that, I suppose that would have to come to 4th of June, but I think it should come to us first, because I think members, particularly I know, I think it was Councillor Hayward or Councillor Wintle were interested in this issue. Sorry, on the 25th of June, there's a report going to Council on the solar farm business case for a council-owned solar farm in Crick. But it raises questions around the income generation from renewable energy and our policy on that from an economic perspective. We'd question what our future direction is going to be on this in terms of support for renewable and how that sits alongside some of our economic policies, because there seems to be a direct conflict at times when we're talking about our economic strategy in terms of improving tourism and leisure and that kind of thing. There's been questions raised about whether that conflicts with solar. It may not, and members may agree that that's not the case, but it has been raised by some members that there is sometimes an issue around that.
I did say to officers that that might be one that ought to come before scrutiny, although it's going to full council, and sometimes things that go to full council don't come to scrutiny first, because there would be an opportunity for members at full council. I think given that this is going to be ownership by the council of that business, I think perhaps it is one that probably would be flagged up to come to this committee. So I think they're expecting that you might want to see it.
Nothing else to raise on that then. Well, thank you. I may not be chair at the next meeting. I hope to be, but I may not be. So, but if I'm not, I just wanted to say thank you very much for all your support and being such a great bunch of people to work with, even if there's only 2 of the group here today, or 3 that's included now.
Yeah, can we return the compliments? It's been very exciting to have you as chairman this last 12 months. It has been very productive. And at the same time, can we say to Hazel for her guidance and all the rest of it? And of course, a lot of hard work goes on with Richard doing the minutes and everything else that they do behind the scenes. So to all 3 of you, very grateful.
Likewise, I agree with that, but also I'm not so sure that exciting.
Thank you very much, and I agree with your comments on our support team as well. Thank you.